Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're taking a deep dive into a truly compelling and, well, often heartbreaking story. The life and legacy of Víctor Jara. His name, it's more than just history, isn't it? It really resonates. A symbol of art, activism, and this relentless fight for justice. We've pulled together quite a collection of sources for this deep dive, articles, some deep academic research, even lyrical tributes inspired by him. Together, they really paint this vivid picture of a man who came from very humble beginnings to become this global icon. So our mission today, trace that journey. From his early years, his rise as a voice for the people, right through to the brutal events that tried to silence him, and crucially, the decades-long pursuit of justice that followed.
Yeah, and what's really compelling looking through these sources is how they let us connect the dots, between his artistic genius, which was undeniable, and his unwavering political convictions. For you listening, this isn't just about dates and facts. It's really about revealing how one artist's life became this profound testament to the power of art, the courage of conviction, and that vital, difficult search for truth against, frankly, overwhelming odds.
Absolutely. So let's start right at the beginning. Víctor Lidio Jara Martinez, born 1932, rural Chile, tenant farmers. And the sources really highlight this contrast early on. His father was illiterate, but his mother, who had Mapuche roots, that's Chile's largest indigenous group, she taught herself guitar and piano, sang at local events.
That duality is fascinating, isn't it? It almost foreshadows his entire path, this educated artist giving voice to the voiceless.
Right. The family moved closer to Santiago, but then tragedy hit. His mother died when he was just 15.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, you can see how that early exposure, both to real hardship and the power of folk music, must have been incredibly formative. It really shaped his worldview. You see, in the sources, he tried different things first, accounting even, then entered a seminary, thought about the priesthood.
But he got disillusioned.
Yeah, apparently quite disillusioned with the, let's say, rigidity of the church at that time. He was searching for something deeper, a different kind of purpose.
And he found it in the arts. What was the turning point?
It seems so. He left the seminary, and by 1957, he's immersed in the University of Chile choir in Santiago. Then he gravitated towards theater, plays with strong social themes, He even got a scholarship.
And this is where Violeta Parra comes in. Our sources really emphasize her importance.
Oh, absolutely pivotal. He met her in 57. She was this towering figure in Chilean folk music, really steering it in new directions. She set up these peñas, these sort of community music centers to bring folk music into everyday life. For Jara, that must have been like finding his tribe, a real catalyst.
So he absorbed all that, joined a group, Concurrently, started exploring traditional music.
Exactly. He dove deep into Chile's folk traditions. But his influences were broader, too. Latin American folk, Parra herself, of course, and even the poet Pablo Neruda. He becomes this key figure in what they called Nueva Canción Chilena, the new Chilean song movement. It was this renaissance, really artistic, but deeply political, too.
And his first solo album came out in '66.
That's right, his self-titled album. But even before that, he was already a known force within that movement.
Okay, so he's established. How quickly did the music become explicitly political? I mean, beyond just reflecting folk traditions.
Almost immediately, it seems. He had this knack, maybe unintentionally at first, for pushing buttons.
Like that story about La Beata, the song satirizing a religious woman.
Exactly, a traditional comic song, but his version got banned from radio, pulled from shops.
So censorship early on.
Right. But what's interesting, and you see this in the sources, is that instead of silencing him, it kind of, ironically, boosted his reputation among young progressives, made him a bit of a rebel figure.
So that sort of foreshadowed his deeper political commitment.
It certainly seems that way. After visiting Cuba and the Soviet Union in the early 60s, he actually joined the Communist Party. And his songs, they weren't just abstract political slogans, they were raw. They came from his own experience of poverty, That authenticity really connected with people.
That authenticity must have been key. But, for an artist aligning so strongly with one party, did that cause issues? Did sources mention criticism?
That's a fair point. I mean, sure, his political stance fired up his supporters, gave the music incredible power. But yeah, conservative critics definitely tried to label it as just propaganda. But his grounding in folk tradition, his genuine connection to working people, it often let the message resonate beyond just party lines for a lot of listeners.
And his commitment was total. Campaigning for Salvador Allende.
Tirelessly. Allende was the candidate for the Popular Unity Coalition, a left-wing alliance. Jara volunteered, played countless free concerts to rally support.
And he wrote, "Venceremos. We will triumph." That became the anthem, right?
Became the anthem for Allende's movement. Hugely powerful.
So Allende wins in 1970, a historic moment, and Jara steps into a more official role.
He becomes a kind of cultural ambassador, yeah, helping to shape Chilean culture under the new socialist vision. He famously set Pablo Neruda's poems to music, performed when Neruda won the Nobel Prize in '72.
That's incredible. And his fame even reached the Soviet Union. I saw that note about them claiming his voice was due to surgery in Moscow.
Yeah, quite a bizarre piece of, well, misinformation, really, but it shows his international profile was growing significantly. It speaks volumes.
But this visibility, this activism, it also brought danger, didn't it?
It absolutely did. That 1969 song, Preguntas por Puerto Montt, questions about Puerto Montt, it directly called out a government official, Edmundo Pérez Zuyevich, over a police attack on squatters. After that official was assassinated, things got much worse politically. And Jara himself was apparently beaten by right-wing thugs at least once. The tension was escalating.
Yeah. And then came September 11th, 1973, a day that just shattered Chile. The military coup, backed by the U.S., overthrowing Allende, installing Pinochet. Jara was at the Technical University when it started.
He was. He spent that first terrifying night there with students and other staff. Our sources say he was singing to keep spirits up, even then, knowing the danger. Just imagine.
Then the next morning, September 12th, arrested.
Taken prisoner, along with thousands of others. Herded into the Estadio Chile, the Chile Stadium, which, ironically, is now named after him. And it raises that chilling question, doesn't it? How quickly did his fame make him a target in that chaos?
Almost instantly, based on the accounts. He was recognized quickly by an army officer, and the details that emerged later, they're horrific. An officer making him crawl for a lit cigarette, stamping on his wrist. Breaking the hands of a guitarist. The symbolism is just brutal. Separated, beaten, tortured. But even then, witnesses said he sang Venceremos through split lips, an unbelievable act of defiance.
And just hours before they killed him, he managed one last creative act. A fellow prisoner said Jara asked for a pen, a notebook. He scribbled down the words to a poem, Estadio Chile, it's now called, smuggled out later.
Those lines. How hard it is to sing when I must sing of horror. Horror which I am living, horror which I am dying. Just devastating.
A final, incredibly poignant testimony from inside the horror.
He was only 40. Shot in the head, his body riddled with over 40 bullets, dumped on the street. His wife, Joan. Her courage in identifying his body, giving him that quick secret burial before having to flee into exile. That's hard to comprehend.
It's an unspeakable end. But in a way, that very brutality, contrasted so starkly with his message, immediately turned him into this incredibly powerful symbol. And it was Joan Jara, wasn't it, who, amidst her grief, dedicated herself to ensuring that symbol and the fight for justice would never fade.
Exactly. And that fight, that relentless struggle you mentioned, it took decades, but it did start to make cracks in the wall of silence, didn't it?
It absolutely did. For Joan and her daughters, it was this unwavering mission against, well, frankly, against huge obstacles. Years of dictatorship, denial.
How did that pursuit of justice actually unfold? It wasn't just in Chile.
No, it became truly international. Initially, yes, the efforts were focused within Chile. And there were small breakthroughs, like retired Colonel Mario Manriquez Bravo being convicted back in 2008. He was head of security at the stadium. But a key turning point was realizing that some major figures involved had left Chile, like Pedro Barrientos Núñez, the officer identified as playing Russian roulette with Jara before ordering others to shoot him.
He was living in the U.S.
In Florida, yes. So Joan Jara and the family filed a civil lawsuit there in 2013, using U.S. law alleging torture, extrajudicial killing under the Alien Tort Statute, and Torture Victim Protection Act.
That's a significant move, taking the fight abroad.
Hugely significant. It wasn't just about Barrientos. It was about setting a precedent that perpetrators couldn't just find safe haven.
And did these efforts in Chile and the U.S. start to connect?
They did. In 2016, that Florida jury found Barrientos liable, awarded the family $28 million in damages, a massive symbolic victory. Meanwhile, back in Chile, things were also moving. In 2018, 8 retired military officers were finally sentenced 15 years each for the murders of Jara, and also leader Quiroga Carvajal, who was killed at the stadium too, plus 3 years for kidnapping.
So convictions in both countries, essentially.
Well, the U.S. was a civil liability finding, but yes. And then just last year, 2023, Chile's Supreme Court upheld those long prison sentences for the 8 officers.
I remember hearing one of them. Hernan Chacon Soto took his own life rather than be arrested.
That's right. A grim end, but it showed the sentences were finally becoming real.
And Barrientos, What happened after the Florida verdict?
His U.S. citizenship, which he'd gained somehow, was revoked. And then again, just last year, October 2023, he was arrested in Florida. And finally, in December 2023, he was deported, not extradited. Interestingly, it was an immigration removal back to Chile, taken straight into custody upon arrival after 50 years.
50 years. That is just an incredible length of time. Beyond the specific verdicts, what's the bigger message here from this whole saga?
I think the message is incredibly powerful. It says that justice might be slow, painstakingly slow, but it is possible. This fight, spanning decades, crossing borders, using different legal systems, it really demonstrates that determined effort can eventually lead to accountability, even against powerful figures and state denial. It offers, I think, real hope for other victims of human rights abuses globally.
So despite everything, the attempt to silence him ultimately failed. His voice, his message, it just seemed to grow louder, didn't it, globally?
It really did. Joan Jara establishing the Víctor Jara Foundation in '94 was crucial, keeping his work alive, publicizing their final Estadio Chile poem, making sure his last words were heard.
And the cultural impact you mentioned earlier. It's staggering.
It truly is. I mean, an asteroid named after him back in '73, that's pretty remarkable.
And the music tributes. The Clash. U2, Simple Minds.
Arlo Guthrie did one early on. James Dean Bradfield from the Manic Street Preachers did a whole concept album and podcast about him. It cuts across genres and generations.
Emma Thompson planning a movie with Antonio Banderas as Jara, a street renamed after him in Santiago. Even a reference in a video game.
Yeah, Dead by Daylight, apparently. And Rolling Stone calling him one of the 15 rock and roll rebels in 2013. It shows his story resonates in so many different ways, in so many different corners of culture.
Is there a common thread, do you think? Why does his story connect so universally, even now?
I think it taps into these fundamental themes, doesn't it? The artist as a conscience, as a voice for justice, the sheer defiance of the human spirit against tyranny, and the terrible price sometimes paid for speaking truth to power. His music, even if you don't speak Spanish, carries this emotional weight, this sense of struggle and hope. It speaks to basic human experiences.
So ultimately, his story serves as this powerful reminder. You can silence the person, but the ideas, the art, they can become something else entirely.
Exactly. They can transcend the individual, become these potent symbols of resistance and hope that echo far beyond what anyone, especially his killers, could ever have imagined.
So we've journeyed through this extraordinary life. Víctor Jara, singer, activist, visionary. His art completely bound up with Chile's struggle for justice. His defiance in the face of just, well, unspeakable brutality and then that relentless decades-long fight by his family. It really has cemented him as this global icon.
Absolutely. And if we connect it all back, Víctor Jara's unfinished song, as some call it, it's still being sung today, isn't it? It reminds us all of the incredible power art can have against tyranny, and of that long, hard, but ultimately vital fight to hold those who commit human rights abuses accountable. It makes you think, what stands out most to you from his story? What piece of his message, of hope, of resistance, will you carry forward?